All right, guys. So what we're going to do right now is I'm going to talk to you guys about what face mapping is. I'm going to use a pencil and a Sharpie. I'll use a pencil to like lay things out, and then we'll go from there. So I'm just going to talk to you guys. So what is face mapping? So face mapping is basically like laying down some general proportions to help you draw a face better. And I think if you guys use this technique, you'll all be able to draw a face better. So let me show you real quick here on the side. We'll talk for a second. So when most people see faces, like we're hardwired to see them. And what we're doing all day is when we're looking at faces, we're looking from like, I mean, with me, I don't have hair, but for you guys, when you look from here to here, you're staring at people's faces all day. So when you draw a face, a lot of times people will start with like just a typical oval or egg shape. If we were doing this live in class, I'd have a student come up to the board and draw a face, and usually I'd let them do it without any instruction. And they'll usually come across something like this. Like they'll end up drawing a face, like maybe a fun cartoon face. Some people do more detail or not, with hair or whatever. That's usually what I get, something like that. And, while that's a cute cartoon and all, the proportion on it is totally wrong, okay? And I think the reason people do that is because we're so used to looking at this. We're used to looking at emojis and even just the traditional typical smiley face, right? So like that's a face boiled down to its like simplest form. Like what is the emotion of a face? And we look at those all day long. And so I feel like this cartoon version is like halfway between an emoji and like a realistic face. So that's what people typically draw. It's like a shortcut, right? But neither of them are realistic facial proportions. What you got to think about when you're drawing a face is you have to think about what's underneath the face. Underneath everyone's head, there's actual bone structure there. We have a skull. And your skull is what gives your face structure. So, you've got eye sockets. And this top part of your skull, this is called the cranium. And then you have your mandible, the jawbone that comes down and connects here. So that's like basically underneath everyone's head, there is a skull, right? And so I like to think about this when I'm making my face, when I'm doing my face mapping. So usually anytime I'm drawing a face, I start with this idea that I'm drawing a skull. And so most people's skulls or faces, if you look at it, the top part is pretty much round, right? It's a circle. So I'm going to start with just a big circle here. And like any other time we're drawing, I try to keep my pencil real light. No specific details yet. Hopefully it's not too light for you guys to see on my camera. But it's there. And then I'm going to go ahead and put the jaw in, or make it more of an oval. And when you're trying to decide how big to make this part on the bottom that makes it an oval, just remember that this part of the face is about a third. So if we were to break this circle in half like this, well then this part here should equal half of that. So I actually got to come down a little bit further. Should be a little bit more like that. So don't be afraid to play around with that shape until you get it right. I'm gonna go ahead and erase that line so it doesn't confuse you guys later. So there's my face. It's about a third of it's down here, and then 2/3 of it is up here at the top. So it's that general shape. Maybe I'll darken the edges just so we can kind of see them. I'll draw with a Sharpie when I actually draw the face so that you guys can see kind of how we use this. All right. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to split my face in half. Okay, I'm just going to put a center line down it, and that just kind of helps me know where to place things on the face. Most people's faces are semi-symmetrical. It's very rare for somebody to have a perfectly symmetrical face. A lot of times that's considered like ideal beauty, is if you have a very symmetrical face. And you'll notice a lot of times if you take a picture of yourself and flip it in reverse, that it doesn't look quite right. And the reason that is because our faces aren't perfectly symmetrical. But anyways, I think the first thing I always draw almost is I like to lay down a couple lines first to kind of lay out where I'm going to map these things. So the first thing we've got to think about is where are the eyes on this? I use the eye line as my reference point for all the other lines that I'm going to make. And so what you want to remember is this is wrong, right? This little cartoon character. And most of the reason that's wrong is these eyes are too big and too high. Nobody's eyes are up here, okay? And I think I actually make a good model for this because without hair, you can really see, if I look right into the camera here, between the bottom of my chin and the top of my head, which is here, this is the top of my head. And if you're looking at other people, you actually see all the way up to here. It's just it's covered with hair and stuff like that. And you're focused on their face, which is usually like here to here, right? And so people draw the eyes 3/4 of the way up the face, and that's what they draw. But when you look at it in terms of like an actual head with a skull, right? Your eyes are halfway, exactly halfway between the tip top of your head and the bottom of your chin. So what we're going to do on our drawing here is halfway between here and here, which is about probably about here, right? That's about halfway. That is where my eyes are going to go. So I'm going to go ahead and write, that's my eye line. So that's halfway between the top and bottom. Okay, so that's an important one, your eye line. Everything else can basically run off of that now, because halfway between your eye line and the bottom of your chin is your nose. Okay, and it usually falls right here down at the bottom of the cranium, actually. It gets close to the bottom. So halfway between here and here, yeah, it's right there. Okay, so that's my nose line. And then we're going to change it up. It's not going to use halves this time, but 1/3 of the way. So if we were to break this into 3, so 1, 2, 3. If I were to break it up, this line here, 1/3 of the way down, this is the mouth line. So your mouth line's 1/3 of the way below the nose line. The nose line's halfway below the eye line, and your eye line's halfway down from the top of your head. So just remember, like half, half, third. Okay. I have a note page that I'll paste to Schoology for you guys with this, that you guys can use to look at that too. Okay. So now that I've done that, there's other lines we could do for the eyebrows and things, but I think I'm going to use these 3 lines and place these 3 objects first. Okay. And this is what we've learned to draw this week. We started with our eyes and then we did our mouths and noses. So now it's about how do we place them onto a face. Okay. By the way, guys, if I'm going too fast, put it in the comments in the chat or just shout it out and I'll slow down for you guys. Okay. All right, so the eyes. I usually start there, and typically a face is 5 eyes wide, all right? So usually if you look at somebody's face, there's like the space in between the 2 eyes that an eye could fit there, and then an eye could fit on the side of each eye. So it's 5 eyes wide. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start. I'm going to eyeball it. You like that, Jacoby? I'm going to eyeball it. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's pretty close. Maybe I can move this over a little bit. You could even do, if you really wanted to, you could do this and kind of give yourself the circles, make sure they're about the same size. That looks pretty good. So my eyes are going to fit here. That's where my eyes are going to be. Lighten it up a little bit. All right. So my eyes are going to go there. So I'm going to go ahead and start using a Sharpie to lay things out so you can really see. I usually do this on a dry erase board. It gives me a little bit more flexibility, but oh well, we'll just do it with a permanent marker. All right. So what I'm going to do is, remember that shape of an eye we talked about earlier in the week? People typically make them a little bit bigger than they are. So don't make them too big, and just make sure you kind of catch that swoop on the bottom. And, if you were drawing a real person, I would just really recommend you look at their face. What shape is their eyes? Make sure you get that whole iris in there big enough. And then the pupil. A little tear duct. You get a little eyelid. Do you want this to be a guy or a girl? You guys not care? I'm gonna go ahead and just,
because I feel like they have more detail, and if we were to draw a guy next, then we would just tone the details of the girl down.
Okay, so you want to, okay, well, I'll do a girl then. So what would I do then? I would go ahead and make sure that I'm doing some bigger eyelashes, right? Catching those feminine features. Okay. All right, so there are my eyes, The next thing I want to do is I want to draw the nose. And so when I go to draw the nose, what's really cool is if you look, the inside edge of your eyes right here is even with the outside edge of your nose. So you could actually make a box, like a rectangle basically right here, and your nose is going to live inside of this rectangle. All right. So I know that this is the outside edges of my nose are going to go here and it's going to go on that line. All right. So I use that as my guide. And I'm going to go ahead and put my nostrils here. And then you just connect them with that little swoop. And again, look at the person, make sure you're drawing their shapes the same. This is just in general. If you place a nose there, it's going to feel right. And then your parentheses on the outside to make those nostrils of the nose. Okay. So that's where a nose is generally going to go, is right there. I'll give it like a little bit of a detail. All right, so now the mouth, there is a trick you can use for the mouth as well, just like with the nose. So the nose is even with the inside edges of the eyes, the outside edge of the nose, right? But the mouth, if you draw a straight line underneath the pupil, almost like they're crying, right? Straight down. And that's only if you're looking straight at the person, right? Your pupil is even with the outside edge of your mouth. You can look at other people in your Zoom calls and stuff and look at that. So I know that the mouth has to stop here and here, and it's going to be on that line. So I'm going to go ahead, and I feel like my center line's a little off center now that I'm actually adding my features, but that's okay. It still gives you a good idea where to start. So then I'm going to go ahead and make my mouth. And for the sake of this drawing, I'm probably going to leave it closed. Just for right now. We'll go ahead and do the top lip, which is thinner than the bottom lip, remember. Be a little bit open like that. Okay. So there's our mouth. Okay. And now we can start thinking about some of the other details and definitions and things that we want to do. So I would start now, I'd probably put some eyebrows on here, right? And so your eyebrows, remember in class when we were talking about drawing an eye, you could draw an eye sideways, right? And your eyebrow is usually an eye's length above the eye, like so right here. Or if you were to draw another eye above this eye, right, your eyebrow usually sits on top of that. So those are two ways you could learn to draw where an eyebrow goes. But when you're drawing a whole face like this and you're using face mapping, one of the cool tricks is you can actually just go a quarter of the way above the eye line. So if this is my eye line and I were to break this in half, well, this is probably a quarter of the way there. And if you look, that's about where we were just talking. So that's where your eyebrow goes. It's a quarter of the way above the eyes. Okay. So now that I know that, I also know that my eyebrows stay pretty close to the edges of the eyes. They arch up though. So they're going to arch up to that line. So I'm going to start right around here. And I'm going to go ahead and bring the eyebrows up to that line and then back down a little bit. Just remember that eyebrow line is usually the top of the eyebrow, not the middle of it. Whereas everything else is kind of like right in the middle of that line. This girl looks like she's evil. Kind of looks like Haley. All right. So what do you guys want to do next?
Excuse me?
You guys want to do the ears next? So you guys do me a favor here. I'm gonna go back to gallery view for a second so I can see you guys. All right. So everyone, I want you to try this for me. Okay. Put your finger, make a finger mustache. Go like this. Put your finger under your nose. Okay, just everyone for a second. I know it feels weird, but come on, Riley, where's your finger mustache? All right, so take your finger mustache, and if you drag it across your face, eventually you're going to hit the bottom of your ear. If you keep it straight, you will. And it's going to hit where you're, not the bottom of your ear lobe, but where your ear connects to your skull. Like where, if you go like this and you keep it in a straight line, it's going to hit where your ear connects to the bottom of your head.
Mr. D.
So we know that that's a technique or a spot where it's going to be. Yeah, what's up, Jacoby?
I would like to say have fun
Okay.
with these children.
Sorry, I don't know that.
Shut up, Alexa.
Thanks, Jacoby. We're having a
yeah.
great time. All right, you have a good one at your orthodontist appointment. Good luck
No,
with those braces.
no.
All right. So now, guys, after the finger mustache, now put your finger, don't poke your eye out, but stick it in the corner of your eye here. Okay. And if you go and drag it along the side of your head, you're going to find the spot where your ear connects to your skull. Okay. The top part of it. So we know that that's a thing. We know that that's accurate. So let me go back to my drawing. And if you do that, you know that the top of the ear is going to connect here where your eyes are, and the bottom of the ear is going to connect here where your nose is on both sides of the face. And so then you just have to look at the person and decide, do they have really big ears or do they have little ears? Are their earlobes connected or are they detached? Every person's a little bit different. The older your subject, the bigger their earlobes are going to be because the cartilage in your nose and the cartilage in your ears keeps growing the older and older you get. That's why old dudes look like they have really, really big ears. Not looking forward to that part of my life. I'm rapidly approaching it. So anyways, usually what I do is I go ahead and just kind of bring it out a little bit and then bring it down and connect that lobe. You know, try to make them about the same shape if you can. And then when I'm drawing ears, I know we didn't spend a lot of time talking about it in class. I usually just kind of give this top arch here to kind of reflect like that top rim of your ear. And then there's this little part of your ear, it's your tragus. It juts out here on the side. So it's usually like right around here. So I usually draw that. And then you can add more details if you want. You can add like that rim there. I don't know. Every person's a little different, and how much detail you want to add, you know, varies. Sometimes you can't even see people's ears. It just depends. All right, so now let's go ahead and we're going to give this person a jawline. And like I said in class the other day, the jaw it really doesn't bend till you get to the mouth portion of the face, and then it bends pretty quickly. Give this person kind of a rounder, pointed face. And now this is all skull. And if I were to draw that in, you're like, whoa, what's up with that bald chick? But I'm telling you, most people's heads, their cranium, the top part of their head. I mean, I'm like a great example, right? They're that large. It's just you're used to looking at them covered with hair. So where does the hair go? Well, about 2/3 of the way above the eyes. So like 1, 2, like right here. That's usually the hairline. So we could put a line here, right? And you can see it, like if we buzz somebody's head and gave them like a fade or whatever, like that's where their hair would be, right there, right? Might be curved a little bit more, right, to match the shape of the head. But that's where somebody's hair would be. The trick is that's not always how people cut their hair or make their hair, style it. You got to look at each person differently, but that's where the hair follicles are going to end. Most people's are there. Not mine. Mine are like all the way to the top. But for you guys and normal people, they're not here. They're here. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and give this person some hair. I would look at your character or person and decide like where do they part their hair in the middle? Do they part to the side? Whatever. We're just going to go ahead and give this this girl some kind of normal hair. I'll probably we'll go ahead and she'll part it on the side, okay. So we'll do this and kind of tuck it back behind the ears because we want to see the ears since we already drew them. Sometimes you won't even see them. The other thing that's important too, though, is when you're drawing somebody's hair, don't stop here at the top of the head. People's hair has volume and mass to it, so you want to draw the hair slightly above the top of the head. So for parts there, see how I'm putting it kind of like above that, and it's like riding the shape of the head. You know, it kind of comes around and then maybe down like this. You know, depending on the person. I like drawing hair because there's not really, people get stressed out about it, but there's no right or wrong way. You just kind of got to look at the person's hair and generally like what shape is it going in. You know, the darker areas of the hair, I put more lines. The lighter areas, like if it's picking up a highlight, I try to keep it a little bit lighter. I don't draw too many lines. Okay. And so if we wanted to go ahead and put a neck on this person before we finished, just remember your neck is even with your ears, but it curves in like this. And so it kind of follows along with your jaw. It's hard to see with my beard, but like if you look at this drawing, so her neck would be here and it would curve down with this, and then it would curve out. So like kind of like this. Okay? And what's nice is even when I'm using a Sharpie, if you mess up, bam, just make it hair. I find if you just don't stress when you're drawing, you can make anything. Any mistake can become something that you meant to do. Kind of gave this girl some split ends. Oops. Oh well. She needs to go to a hairstylist. She looks like a caveman or something. But that is how you draw a face using basic facial proportion and face mapping. And so if you use that technique anytime you're drawing somebody, if you lay down the proportions first, then you'll do a better job drawing them as a face. So let me just show you one other thing real quick. I'm going to go ahead and share with you guys. I'm going to go to my Google Drive for a second. And I am putting in our, I'm going to put, actually, I'll go to our Schoology page right here in this week's live activities folder. Oh, this is my 5th hour. I got to go to 7th, 8th hour where we're at. So in our page for live synchronous activities, I went ahead and I put in that presentation I did earlier today on facial proportion, but I also put in my facial proportion guide here. And so if you look at it, this is a couple years old. I used to use it with my old students. It's a guide that uses myself as an example for how to draw a face. And it's got all those rules I just talked about written on it so that you don't forget them. That the eyes are halfway between the top and the bottom. The face is 5 eyes wide. The nose is halfway between the eyes and the bottom of the chin. The mouth is a third of the way between the nose and the bottom of the chin. So I posted it there. You guys can print it and color it or give me new hairstyles or have fun with it however you want. I don't care what you do with it. I actually have to update it.